Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Ziefel, Dean of the College of Ministry here at Northwest University. Welcome to Live Long and Pastor. That's right. Our goal in this podcast is to learn more about ministry from leading pastors. And along the way, we're going to be hopefully challenging you, invigorating you, and for those pastors listening in, encouraging you towards longevity in ministry. So, that's what we're here for today. And my guest today is Pastor Shaddye Melu.
Let's
Hi,
go.
Shaddye.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good.
This is
Thanks
awesome.
for being here. Uh, honest thing, he's my closest person to his office is the closest to mine of any of my guests so far. He is the lead campus pastor here at Northwest University. And you've been here since July, August?
August
Okay.
1st.
August 1st. So let's see, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months now?
Yeah.
A little over 5 months. Okay.
Crazy.
You're still here, so that's good.
Still here.
Still here, folks.
Still going.
Good. All right. A question I ask my guests, I like to ask this to start off with. If there was a fictional character that is you as a pastor, could be somebody from a book, movie, TV, whatever, who is that person and why?
Man, that's a really hard one to answer. You know why it's hard? Because you can, if the answer is like too good, it's like, are you like boasting? You know? It's like, man, LeBron James.
Yeah. You think
Like,
he's not a fictional character? Is he? Well, is he a fictional
LeBron
character?
James in Space Jam.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I think I somewhat have one.
All right. Who is it?
I like this one.
Come on.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
All right. So tell me about that. Tell me about that. We're going to analyze this here. Why the
So-
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
So I'm not thinking too deep into it, but he moves into a new environment.
It's true.
He leaves a different environment, completely new situation, and he's trying to make the best of it. And he
Yeah.
does some things really well, and then other things he struggles.
All right. That's fair. You're not from West Philadelphia, are you?
No.
You didn't spend most of your time in the playground, did you? I'm remembering
did.
the theme song. Oh, you did? Okay.
Did.
So,
A lot of basketball, retired hooper.
that's great. And then you got into trouble and your mother sent you to Kirkwood. I'm just remembering the song. Okay.
Well, for me, I was from Africa, and then now
Yeah.
got transported.
So
Kirkland.
you were born in Africa.
So I actually was born in London.
Okay.
So born in London because my mom was doing school in London, but my family was living in Zambia.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was 6 months after I was born, went back to Zambia, and then when I was 5, we moved back to England. Lived in England for 3.5 years.
Okay.
After 3.5 years, moved to Auburn, Washington.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, my dad worked for World Vision, and so that was
Yeah.
what was moving us.
So do you have any memory of your early years in Zambia or London? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of memories.
Okay.
I broke my arm here,
Okay. Whoa. I guess you did.
and that happened when I was 4.
Okay.
It's crazy. My son turns 4 on Saturday. Couldn't imagine him doing this, but I fell out of a tree, snapped my arm open.
Wow. And
Bone came out.
well, while you were in Africa. Yeah. Bone came out?
Yeah, bone came out. Had to get
Yikes.
3 surgeries on it. So
All right. I could see that happening to Will Smith in Fresh Prince, too.
yeah, just kind of reckless sometimes.
All right. So, okay. We've already started talking about it, but tell me a little bit about your story. Like, how did you end up in ministry? What's your life story and your call to ministry like,
Yeah.
briefly?
No, I love that question. I would say for me, I always grew up in church. I was forced to go to church,
Yeah.
but I didn't not like church. I never really had a season in life where I was like running from God.
Yeah.
It was just seasons where I wasn't serious per se. And when I was in high school, did sports, football, basketball, track. And I would say my sophomore year, junior year was really like starting to figure out and trying to find who I am. And was that in sports? But it wasn't really in sports because I wasn't good at sports at the time.
Yeah.
And I would hang out with other people on, football team, basketball team, and they would, drink, smoke, and I wouldn't really engage, but every once in a while I'd be like, let me have a sip. And once that happened, and my brother was there, and he's like, absolutely not. Meanwhile, he had a drink. That was funny, but he's like, no.
That's called hypocrisy.
Yeah, but he was like, no, not you. So just kind of struggled with some identity stuff.
Yeah.
But then my senior year, this is crazy. I went to a party. This girl that threw the biggest parties at the school.
Okay.
I knew her since middle school, actually elementary. Invited everyone to this party. Everyone goes. People get in trouble. I'm the one athlete that doesn't get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, God, okay. Because I had prayed, like, God, if I don't get in trouble, I'm going to be, like, more serious about you.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, 2 months later, that same girl gets saved.
Okay.
She gets saved, ends up, instead of inviting people to her party, she's starting to invite people to church.
Wow.
And at first, I'm like, I ain't going to church with you. Like, I'll just go to my parents' church.
Yeah.
But, like, people's lives started getting transformed and changed. And so I'm like, okay. A few months later, I'm like, all right, I'll go check it out. By that time, there's like 70 students from my high school that are going. And I'm seeing like people I've known for years that are like, lives are getting
Now,
changed.
is that still down like in Auburn?
Yeah, this was a church down in Puyallup.
Okay.
And so long story short, I ended up going and end up just being like, I want to just keep going here.
Yeah.
And by March, a few months later, I had a radical encounter with God at the youth conference.
Wow. Okay.
And felt called to ministry. And from there, I just was, the call started there, but there was a process after that. But that was where I really felt like I want to be a pastor.
That was your senior year in high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Seattle University, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and you were involved in starting a campus ministry there, right?
Yes. So that was part of the tension that I was feeling when I was coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. All of my friends who felt called to ministry were turning around and going to do the church internship at that church. Because they felt called to ministry. Okay, I'll just do practical ministry here.
Yeah.
But for me, I also knew I ran track and I had opportunities to run in college. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, there was a tension of this desire and what I felt like as a calling at the time to run track and to do that, do sports in college. And then going to Seattle U, knowing where in Seattle that is, in the middle of Capitol Hill. Uh-huh. Knowing just the dynamics of the school, I felt like after really struggling with, am I supposed to go there? I was supposed to, number one, go run track. And number two, I felt like God was asking me to start a college ministry. Yeah. And even just that process was very unique because I thought it was going to be with the guy who I knew from elementary school, whose dad was a pastor. Yeah. I thought I was going to start it with him. Just felt like God was like, no, not him. Yeah. Ended up starting it in March. Mm-hmm. Of my freshman year with someone who had gotten saved the night before because God felt like God had impressed on my heart, like, hey, invite him to this youth conference. I want to change his life. Okay, Saturday night, he's not going to want to come. There's a big party tonight. Yeah. He's like, okay, I'll go. Yeah. He comes, gets saved. I tell him about this group I want to start. He's like, let's start it tomorrow. I want to tell more people about what God did in my life, and you can just relate it to the Bible. So that's how we started. He was just telling testimony, and I was relating it to the Bible. Wow. And from there, we grew. We became a club on campus. We partnered with a church, partnered with Young Life, ended up wanting to partner with us. A lot of organizations, as we started to grow, were like wanting to pretty much use us for volunteers, which is hilarious because that happens here.
I've never heard of it. Wow.
We ended up getting a budget where people were giving us money.
Wow.
I opened up my first ministry account. It was through Bank of America.
Yeah, okay.
We had funds, and we started meeting. By my junior year, we were meeting at an auditorium on campus. Wow. And funny enough, we started having Seahawk players come to our group.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
One player, Jermaine Curse, his younger brother, Jamal, started coming, and he became a leader.
Okay.
And he was leading. He actually transferred into Seattle U as a master's student so that he could be a part of this ministry. It was such a powerful thing. And then Jermaine noticed, like, man, you're just different now. What is it? And he's like, man, it's this thing I'm a part of at Seattle U. You should come. So he started coming, and Jamal had told us that was the first time he ever saw Jermaine raise his hands in worship. And I had seen Jermaine before in a church setting, but this was the same year that they won the Super Bowl. So it was like, in between playoff games, he was coming to our group. And so I would get voice memos of people that were just like, what the heck? I just saw this person.
Yeah, so not only did you have Seahawk player in your group, but the Super Bowl bound or Super Bowl winning Seahawk. So brings a lot of notoriety to things too. No, a lot of people are interested.
No, and I'll say this really fast. My sophomore year,
Uh-huh.
I had messaged Jermaine on Facebook.
Okay.
Because Jermaine is from Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I had messaged him
Okay.
on Facebook asking him if he'd want to come speak at our group.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything back.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Seahawks, my sophomore year, they had created a video called Making Up a Champion, and it was like a Christian type
Mm-hmm.
video. And we wanted someone to come in that would just build interest around campus
Yeah.
to like come hear the gospel.
Uh-huh.
That was really the main goal, is like someone that people recognized that would draw them in, and we'd be able to give a call of salvation. Didn't hear anything back, but my senior year is he asked us if he could share his testimony.
Wow.
So it was just hilarious how God works.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, I messaged you on Facebook 2 years ago.
And he's probably like, I didn't know who you were.
Yeah, that was just a cool little thing I saw God do as a young
Wow.
college student.
So after college, I know
Yep.
you were at City Church, then
Yep.
Churchome. Did you go right from college to working at City Church?
So they offered me the job right before I graduated,
Mm-hmm.
but I kid you not, the day before I was supposed to get hired, I get the call at like 11 p.m. Hey, we're on a budget freeze.
Okay.
And it's effective tomorrow. We
Okay.
can't hire you tomorrow. We don't know when the budget freeze is going to lift. So it could be September, could be January, and this was in June.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea. Okay. So the next day I started driving Lyft because I had to pay for my rent.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to be getting a check in 2 weeks from
Yeah.
the church to pay for rent. So I had to find a job. So I started driving Lyft, ended up getting a job at Lululemon at Bellevue Square Mall, near 10 minutes from here.
All right.
Worked there, and God just did so much in my heart before actually becoming a pastor on a staff of church.
So how long was that season for you then?
A year.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I had some job offers that I had gotten after graduating, but I turned them down. I had a business degree, and I also had a business scholarship on top of my track scholarship.
Yeah. Okay.
And they gave that to one African-American student every 4 years. Mm-hmm. And the goal was at the end, they help you get an awesome job.
Yeah.
So I had like 3 job offers from that. And I said no, because I thought, what if I started the church
Yeah.
in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So hindsight, I probably should have just taken one of those jobs.
Yeah. Just for the year, you know?
Yep.
Well, that can be good. Sometimes I think, especially young students in ministry, if you graduate and start making a lot of money right away, then
it sets you up for
it's
failure.
hard. It's hard to go back to ministry. It's like it's the enemy. You're not going to always make a lot of money in ministry, people. Rarely, probably.
Yep.
All right. So, how long were you at City or Churchome?
Yeah. So I got there in 2012, freshman year of college. Got hired on staff July of 2017.
Okay.
So I was on staff for 7 years through August of 2024.
So was it the same role, kind of youth ministry, or was it a couple different roles?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually was doing a lot of college ministry while I was in college before I got hired.
Okay.
I was like a college, I don't know, I had some volunteer role at the college, helped oversee different things.
Yeah.
But then when I went into youth, I was the high school pastor. My title was actually high school program coordinator.
Ooh.
That was my first time.
That's rough.
So I went from that, and then my job changed in 2020 to be our global youth pastor. So from then, we had become Churchome in 2018, 2019, and my role shifted when we were trying to then expand our church worldwide. They asked me to basically help pioneer what doing youth ministry would look like without an in-person experience or in-person youth pastor per se.
Yeah.
And then I went from that, and then I became our youth pastor, manager, director. I oversaw the youth team for a few years. And then they added, by the time I was leaving, they had me also be our youth content pastor.
Okay.
So anything we did on content, because a lot of our youth ministry was done, even if there was an in-person meeting, you were watching the videos. It was not much of live preaching.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, and then this last August, you came over here to Northwest. So
Yep.
tell me about that decision process for you.
Yeah.
Coming back to college ministry in a certain way, but different than Seattle U, obviously. So
Yeah, definitely.
how did that all happen for you?
Okay, crazy. So it started, I had been feeling like God was transitioning me from Churchome the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was going to look like. I just felt like, something new might be coming. And I wasn't looking for anything new. I wasn't like applying for jobs on the side. But I always knew in the back of my head, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm really strong in college ministry.
Yeah.
My wife actually was the college pastor at our church for 3 years. And so we did college ministry as well. And that's what I started in. And I felt really strong in college ministry. In April of 2024,
Uh-huh.
I'm also finishing my master's here. I was in a class, Don Ross was leading it, and we had our intensive. And the second day of our intensive, he had us asking really hard questions about ministry, work life, home life,
Yeah.
calling.
Okay.
And he had, I think it was like maybe 10 questions that he had us asking with a partner. Some of the hardest questions you could ever say out loud. It's like the
Yeah.
stuff that you think, but you would never say out loud to somebody because you're
Yeah.
afraid that if you say it, you're going to have to do it.
Okay.
So it was one of those. And I'm sitting there with the person that was in the class, and I'm saying these things, and it's very clear that based on these answers I'm giving, I'm supposed to be transitioning
Yeah.
soon.
Okay.
And I talked after with, he had a guest. The guest's name was Bob. I could find it.
Bob Stone, was it?
Bob Stone.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Stone.
Okay.
I asked Dr. Stone a question, and I said, hey, still in transition, been through some things. And he gave me the framework of Psalm 23. And he
Okay.
said, anytime you're looking to make a serious decision, use this framework. And he basically took me through, number one, go to somewhere where there's water, where it's green. God does something special. He's like, I don't know what it is. I've just known God does something in that setting. Number two, let him restore your soul. Never try and make serious decisions from a place of hurt or a place where God hasn't really ministered to you.
Okay.
Third, he directs your steps. Out of those two things, God usually brings direction.
Okay.
So that was in April. I set aside time in June. I took time off, 2 weeks off work to do that in June. The first day that I was going to do that, I was going to start it off at a coffee shop, just seek God, talk to him, read my Bible. I get a call from someone that was on staff here at NU
Yeah.
and telling me about this job. And I wasn't, I'm not one to over spiritualize things. After I got the job, I was able to look back and be like, oh, God was orchestrating this with the timing.
Yeah.
But through the process, it became abundantly clear, like, man, I think this is this is the next step. And, you were part of that process.
I know. I remember we had breakfast one morning.
Yeah, that was good. Really good.
So you've been here now 5 months in the lead campus pastor role. I know your wife, congratulations, by the way. You have a newborn, only a few months old at home. And so not long after you started, you were on paternity leave.
Yeah.
So new semester starting, you're in the saddle now. So how has it been the last few months?
Yeah.
Like what has surprised you? What has been unexpected?
Yeah. I love coming from a youth ministry background where you only see students ever so often. If you're lucky, you see a student once a week. More typically, twice a month.
Yeah.
Once a month. And say if you meet a new student, if they don't fill out some sort of a connect form, connect them with a leader, you don't know if you're going to see them again.
Yeah.
Coming into this setting, it just I feel like I can pastor effectively because the core of people that I'm pastoring and leading are right here, and I always have access to them.
Yeah, they're here every day.
That access has been one of the most incredible things for me. Going to eat lunch with students.
Yeah.
We'll see who's there. All right, I'm just going to sit next to one of y'all. Like, we're going to talk whether you like it or not. So I've loved that. I think one of the healthy challenges has been before, I think, being a youth pastor, you can like, how do I say this without using two words that mean two cuss words?
Well, I don't know, Shaddye. How do you?
So before in youth ministry, you could like skate your way through things
Okay.
and get away with it.
Uh-huh.
You know, like maybe a lack of preparation on a
Uh-huh.
sermon or a lack
Yeah.
of preparation before a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
There just isn't doing that here at a Christian college. And it's so good for me.
Good. Good. Yeah.
Um,
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right.
oh, but another challenge has been for my family going from working primarily from home to working primarily in
Oh,
office.
yeah.
Yeah, that's been a
Yeah.
transition.
Now, how many kids do you have at home?
3.
3. Okay.
Yep. 4-year-old Asa, 2-year-old Shiloh, and our newest 4-month-old Lily.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and you and I, we've discovered we live quite close to each other, so I know what your commute's like. It's not short, especially if you stay here after 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about Northwest. Obviously, it's funny me asking you about Northwest because I know a lot about Northwest, but these people out here don't. So, one of the questions I sometimes ask pastors is, how would your community, like your town or whatever, describe your church? So I'll ask you a version of that question here. How do you think people coming in from the outside visiting the Northwest University campus, how do you think they would describe the spiritual climate here? Like, what are we about? Students, the way that they live their Christian lives.
Yeah. I would say very, very Jesus-centered.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also add on to that, there's a deep sense of like a deep commitment to Christ.
Yeah.
So coming from a church setting, you're more speaking to the newcomer than you are,
Yeah.
or coming from the youth ministry than
Mm-hmm.
you are like the person that's been there
Yeah.
for 3 years. Obviously, you're still speaking to them, but you want to make sure that the person that maybe has never heard the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
So in this setting, it's kind of cool being able to really go deep,
Go deeper. Yeah.
and also there's a deep sense of diversity in students' experience, church experience,
Yeah.
and different chapels also look different based on there's different sprinkles of different church dynamics and styles.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how the campus ministry kind of works here at Northwest right now. So, how often do chapels happen?
3 times a week, and then we have one night service we call Pursuit that happens Monday nights.
Okay. Are the chapels, again, folks, I'm asking questions that I know the answer to. Are the chapels the same each time? I mean, the same style, or is it a little bit different each
So
of the
time
days?
time is always the same. They're all an hour, but Mondays, that's where you're going to get more of a more traditional style. We'll do confession. We'll do, Aaron's blessing. More acoustic worship, slower. It's just more like maybe a student comes from that background where it's not
More
really
traditional, like corporate confession of faith
Yeah.
and Lord's Prayer and things like that.
Yeah. Wednesdays is probably more like a typical, almost like a young adult service.
Yeah.
We'll do groups after, which was something which I was excited to kind of add to one of the chapels. And Wednesday ended up being the right one to add a group element. Really the heart behind that was for students to have an opportunity to talk about what they just heard. And then number 2, also build a sense of community with people that they're sitting next to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Fridays is more just, typical loud
Yeah. I know it.
worship.
Yeah. I know it. And then Monday night, I've been a few Monday nights. Monday night is has been a student-led worship, prayer kind of. There's not normally a lot of preaching. It's more scriptural exhortation, prayer,
Response.
worship. Yeah, response. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I thought about, actually, true story. I thought about going last night. I told my wife, I'm like, let's go. And then there wasn't one last night. So
Oh.
I found out beforehand. But
Okay.
I had talked to her on Sunday. I'm like, let's go. And she's like, okay. And then I found out there was none. So
Oh, good.
that's how it goes. Okay, this next one might be an unfair question because I'm going to ask you about all the Christian universities in the United States. And I imagine you probably don't know all of them, but how would you, if you were to wager a guess, how do you think Northwest is similar to other Christian universities, and how is it unique?
I think there'll definitely be similarities in the student body coming for very similar reasons, wanting, people of similar faith, similar background,
Yeah.
similar goals, and things that they want out of life. I would say there's definitely going to be similarities there. I think differences, being in the Northwest, being a Christian college student in the Northwest would be different than being a Christian college student in Florida or in Georgia.
Okay.
Or in some of those southern Christian schools. Up here, I think students are just exposed to more things.
A generally more unchristian environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's almost like a haven here.
Okay.
I think for college age students who outside of Christian spaces in this area, it's really hard to be a college student because you can be judged for what you believe. So yeah, I would say it's not just like people like-minded things like that. I do think there is a sense of like it's a safe haven as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, we talked about chapel, obviously. Some of the different opportunities there in terms of discipleship, students who want to go deeper and grow in their faith. Obviously, they're attending classes taught by Christian professors or taking Bible theology classes. But from the campus ministries perspective and operations, what does discipleship look like here at Northwest for students?
That's a really good question. I think that's something which, from my perspective, we really want to order our chapels around very relevant topics that can lead to discipleship beyond just the chapel service.
Yeah, okay.
So they can bleed into life groups, they can bleed into conversations, bleed into every area around our campus and be relevant to their lives. One thing which we also, so right now, I would say a lot of our discipleship stuff is more in the form of events.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Or chapels, things that we offer. Obviously, there's the deeper side of like, personal one-on-one. But one of the things which is, and we talked about this, which we are probably going to change next year. This is one of the things I wanted to do, and we probably will end up doing it, is Mondays becoming more of a small group centered experience for our students. And really the heart behind that would be that we're not just trying to disciple students through chapel service, but we have more opportunities for students to dialogue. Yeah. And so, yeah, we want to set up more opportunities for that that style of discipleship.
Okay. So a question I sent Shaddye some questions ahead of time, but one question I didn't send you just kind of came to mind now. Obviously, you have experience in a so Seattle University isn't a Christian
Catholic.
school, Catholic school, but not a
Jesuit.
Yeah. So not a Christian school in the same sort of evangelical sense that ours is. So obviously you have an experience doing a campus ministry there where a lot of the students would probably say maybe they're not from a place of faith.
Yeah.
And now you're the campus pastor at a place where, at least on paper, everyone has to sign a statement of faith. So those are two very different environments for people in the same age range and the same cultural environment coming. What are some of the comparisons and contrasts that you can make between those two different experiences?
The first one is in a setting like Seattle U, you're going to get less criticism for, say, maybe you like quote a verse wrong, quote a Bible verse wrong, or, just something biblically that you say might be inaccurate.
You better watch out. I'm preaching tomorrow.
And not that this is per se happened a lot to me. I'm just very aware in conversations with students. They're very aware if someone is speaking or doing something in chapel and
Yeah.
they feel that it's something is off. So
Okay. Yeah.
there's less of a margin for error
Hmm.
in discipleship and in what you say, where in that setting, the error is larger because they're not coming from a place of like, is this biblically accurate per se? They just more trust you as
And
a
they're probably
leader.
happy to be having spiritual conversations at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, say you say something wrong, it's easier to just come back like the next day or
Yeah.
next week. Hey,
Yeah.
but you don't really have as much room for that here.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. I get that. This is, as a professor, I don't know if they do this anymore. Maybe they did this different professors, but if you have a class right after chapel, you never know, like, oh, Dr. Ziefel, do you know what this person said in chapel today? It's always dangerous because if I'm not there, I don't know what they said, and I have no idea. Like they're like, Pastor Shaddye said this in chapel. First thing I think in my head is, did he really say that, or are they just like retelling this? Are they hearing it differently?
Totally.
Or like tomorrow after I preach, they'll be like, oh, I can't believe Dr. Ziefel said that. They'll be like, no, he means well. I'll be good, I promise. Okay, so you've been here about 5 months. Still about 6 months to go or 7 months to go for a full year, but I'm sure that you've got some plans and ideas, some changes, some innovations that you've been thinking about for campus ministries and spiritual life here on campus. One of them is the Monday chapel moving to small groups, more of a small group focus. What are some other things that are in your mind for some changes or some new things to bring to the table?
One of the things is our yearly, well, currently it's, well, okay, a little bit of background. What used to be called Pursuit Conference, which one of my really good friends, former campus pastor Christian Dawson,
Yeah.
I know he helped pioneer what was Pursuit Conference. And then I know he was a part of the shift going to these nights called Revive, which were really, it was like revival here on campus when those were happening. And that was pre-COVID. And one of the changes I felt coming in, went to my first Revive, and this was something I brought up when I was interviewing, was I really wanted to create a strong experience for students in whatever that conference like event was going to be.
Yeah.
And so when I went to Revive in the fall, I was a little bit disappointed in the student response.
Okay.
And so that kind of confirmed a little bit of what I was thinking, like, okay, how can we bring strength here? Not just to get numbers, but really for students to have an experience where really there's more space outside of chapel
Yeah.
to really like have that encounter with God and not be rushed to get to class.
Yeah. The chapel space is tough because, there's things happening
Yes.
Yeah. right after, before and after. It's
Exactly.
there, Yeah.
And so one of the things that we're doing, even I think this was my first step, and we're actually doing this for this coming semester next month, is so for that we always would be a guest speaker, maybe guest worship, and I did a whole lot of question asking with students that are student leaders, students just around campus, students who went, and then also students who didn't go
Yeah.
to this last one. And I was just asking them very honest questions, trying to get their like real thoughts on,
Yeah.
hey, number one, if you didn't go to Revive, why didn't you go? Number two, if you did, what would make it stronger?
Yeah.
And I got really, really, it was funny. Such a diverse group of people I asked, all of them had very similar answers.
Okay. What did you hear?
I heard number one, with the guests that we were bringing in, they felt like because we always had a guest speaker or something like that, they felt like it was very performance-like.
Okay.
And they're not interested in a performance per se. That it's another guest speaker looking for it's like another gig for them.
Yeah.
So they weren't interested in that. Number two, they felt like the student involvement, that because there wasn't a whole lot of student involvement, that they didn't really feel the ownership
Yeah. Yeah.
of the night. And then also just hearing things like they want to hear more from their campus pastors.
Yeah.
And so, and also with it being called Revive, they also were feeling like, man, are we always trying to conjure up revival?
Okay.
And so immediately I felt like, man, we need to change the name.
Okay. Yeah.
So we changed it to One Night because it's literally just
One night.
one night.
Yeah.
And that's where it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so even in that, created like a student creative team, leadership team to help oversee the night and just plan, hey, what do we actually want this to be?
Mm-hmm.
If we were to start from a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're doing that for this next one. I'm going to speak. That was their suggestion. And then my suggestion was, hey, can we bring someone in that's going to join NU worship and help continue to help create a space of worship, help steward a space of worship
Yeah.
for our students to encounter God. Someone that is very good at that and can come along our team in doing that.
Yeah.
So that's why we're bringing in a good friend of mine, David Mutenji. He's from Elevation Church, Elevation Rhythm. He started Elevation Rhythm. Crazy story about how all of that started too. But so yeah, I'm really excited. And we're partnering with some other campus-wide,
That's great. Well, I mean, it seems like a basic idea, but it can get lost. But it makes sense for the campus pastor to be speaking regularly or more regularly, to the community. I think that that helps in a lot of ways. That helps in a lot of ways. I think even accessibility and connection and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So definitely. Okay. A couple more questions. I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself here. Don't be shy. What are some gifts that you think God has given you that you're excited to be using in this new role?
Yeah. I thought about this, and the first thing that came to my mind was I feel like I can relate to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why, I think having lived in 3 countries, number one,
Yeah.
man, I've interacted with a lot of people. And I'm also somewhat of a foreigner. I do have my American citizenship, but I'm not really from here. And so a lot of my life has been really trying to find connecting points to relate to people that look different than me. They're for sure going to be from a different background than me because I'm not from here.
Yeah.
Have different experience. And I always am trying to find connection links with people. How are we more similar than we are different? I think it's easy to come into a job like this and just feel different, or for students to feel like, how would they per se connect to me based on my background or based on whatever reasons. So I think I'm good at making those reasons clear of how more similar we are than we are different. And I also think I'm good in the one-on-one setting and connecting with, kind of goes hand in hand. But I think it's that those intangible things that are like more in the personal, I think are much more important than obviously, speaking in chapel and preaching and all that is important. But like, how important is that if I can't actually connect with the students?
Well, if I could encourage you, actually, just around the corner from here, it was probably last fall when you just started. There's some meeting happening. There were 2 students on campus. They were twins, I think, right?
Yes.
And I just saw you. I don't even know if you knew them, but you just like all of a sudden struck up a conversation with them. And I kind of turned to the side and I thought, wow, okay, this guy's a pastor. Like you were just able to do that connection, which, in some ways is just one of the small things you do in the pastoral role. But I think it's important to be able to connect with people wherever they are in that moment, casually, and that opens doors.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
So I just see that in you, and I was thankful to see that. I think I saw Ben after that. And I said, I think we hired the right person. Like I literally said that to them after I saw just that one little moment. Not even hearing you preach. So
Wow, I appreciate that.
yeah. So what have you been thankful for here already at Northwest?
I have been very grateful to be believed in.
Okay.
I know it sounds funny, but coming from a different background into this space, I have felt empowered in my role.
Yeah.
And there's something about being a pastor and being empowered to lead.
Yeah.
That has been incredible. And also, I feel like I've been very welcomed in. I'm very grateful for I feel like everyone has just welcomed me in with open arms. And yeah, I would definitely say I'm grateful for that. And just the people here have been refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah.
People like you.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been, no, seriously, it's been really,
I was thinking today, we still haven't had that lunch I promised you. Remember when you started and I'm like, let's have lunch, and then we never did? We never did. So maybe. Okay. So this semester, brand new semester here, what is your prayer for Northwest University for the students this semester?
Yeah. I would say my prayer is a sense of surrender,
Okay.
a real sense of surrender. I think ending a school year can be very, very just anxiety ridden.
Uh-huh.
And I think one of the greatest solutions to anxiety is surrender. Surrender to God, surrendering that situation.
Okay.
And it's easy to be like, planning everything out and every XYZ. And in the meantime, it's like God then becomes like secondary to your plans and what you're planning and all of that. I made the joke in my sermon where it was like, you're holding on to be a pastor, and it's like, it's not what God has called you to do. And he's called you over here, and you're like, no, but God, I want to do this for you. I want to do this for you. Yeah. And he's calling you over here, but you're so caught up holding on to this for him. Mm-hmm. But what you're actually now doing is for you.
Yeah. And
so, yeah, that's my prayer.
Surrender. Okay. It's a good word. Shaddye, we're just about up in time here. Any final thoughts? Any other comments you'd like to add on to what we discussed here today?
Yeah, I think one of the things and I would say this, in my transition here, I saw people transition, being friends with a lot of youth pastors, young adult pastors around the country.
Yeah.
Right? I would see some of them change jobs so easily. And I would always just, man, how is it so easy for you to just leave the church? And obviously there's certain circumstances, but I never saw ministry as a thing where it was like, man, I'm applying for all these ministry jobs, and like, when I get the job, I'm going to go be the pastor there. Yeah. I don't know. I always saw it as I'm called there, and as a result, the job comes with the calling. Yeah. And so my challenge to anyone listening would be, if you're in a season of transition or you feel that, I felt like God had put on my spirit, don't just leave from something, leave to something. And the same thing that God called you to, don't just let God call you from something. God's got to call you to something. Because where you're at right now, God once called us there. Like, you were once called there. Yeah. And so don't just leave what you were called to and not have, without God having called you to the next thing. And that might not be a job. It might be a season of rest. It might be a season of, whatever that season might be. But at least be clear on what that thing is. I don't know. That's my own personal conviction I'm now sharing.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Shaddye. Normally my custom is to ask if you had 10,000 pastors in a room in 30 seconds to say something, what would you say? But I think you just said it. So he already answered the question, folks. Shaddye, if we want to find out more about you on the internet, where can we find about you? Sermons or things you've written, or where can we connect with you?
Man, I would say my Instagram. Okay. Shaddye Melu I was going to say my email. No, don't do that, just Shaddye Melu.
See, it's fun having a name like Joshua Ziefel or Shaddye Melu. Like, you can just... There's nobody else. You don't need to be Shaddye Melu 5, right? You can just be Shaddye Melu. Nope. I am the only Joshua Ziefel on the planet, I think. Are you the only Shaddye Melu?
I am.
See? There we go.
I kind of wish I was the only Shaddye on Instagram. Someone else has it, and they don't even use the page. So
Wait, are they just Shaddye?
Yeah, and I wanted that.
Yeah.
Is what
They'll sell it to you, probably, if you're out there and you have that Instagram. So your Instagram, anywhere else that you would say people could find it?
That's kind of it, yeah.
Okay. Of course, if you want to check out Northwest University, you can take a look at our page and our different things there. So, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks
Appreciate
for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.